To start off our conversation and to kind of give our audience an overview of what we're going to talk about today, what do you see as the most main challenges that healthcare specialists and healthcare sector faces globally?
Yeah, this is quite a complex and inter-twined issue. I guess I need to be cognizant about the wars that are happening around the world today, and as a result of that, the issue about providing food, shelter, and basic needs for people is really critical. And in that, you can throw the sort of malnutrition issues and lack of basic supplies and food for people in the Sudan, in Gaza, and in Europe now. They are all very current. I guess from a healthcare standpoint, there are some major issues. Number one is access to healthcare. World Health Organization statistics say that 60% of the world's population don't have access to basic healthcare. That's related to a multiple issues, but also related to the high cost, poorly resourced sector. And this is unacceptable at present, and we need to have major health reform and address this, which has been ongoing. And I guess that sets the scene for the fact that we need some critical reform and can't keep doing the same things over expecting change. So we need to now recognize that and move forward. And I think these are very exciting times. But again, we will be called to answer, how did we respond with all of these technologies? How have we gone in this space to allow this maximal impact for healthcare?
Technology is disrupting the healthcare space in leaps and bounds. We spoke about all of this and more with Professor Indran Hensman. Stay tuned.
Some bonds give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
The latest issue of LMD International is available at lmdmall.lk. You can also access the digital version on Press Reader, Maxter, our social media platforms and WhatsApp.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is technology in healthcare. And we're here with Laparoscopic and Robotic Specialist Surgeon and Associate Professor Indran Hensman. Professor, it's very nice to have you on our show, and it's very exciting to be talking to you about this technology and how it's disrupting healthcare. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ruwandi. Again, thank you.
To start off our conversation and to kind of give our audience an overview of what we're going to talk about today, what do you see as the most main challenges that healthcare specialists and healthcare sector faces globally?
Yeah, this is quite a complex and inter-twined issue. I guess I need to be cognizant about the wars that are happening around the world today, and as a result of that, the issue about providing food, shelter, and basic needs for people is really critical. And in that, you can throw, the sort of malnutrition issues and lack of basic supplies and food for people in the Sudan, in Gaza, and in Europe now. They are all very current. But I guess from a healthcare standpoint, there are some major issues. Number one is access to healthcare. When you consider what the World Health Organization statistics say, that 60% of the world's population don't have access to basic healthcare. Now, the root causes are complex, but is that acceptable in the world today? That's, I guess, we will be asked to and to give account for what we did to provide that access. So access. Democratization of access. So if you look at even countries like the United Kingdom, there are waiting lists. Even here in Australia, there are patients waiting for treatment, maybe it's surgery or medical treatment, because access is a problem. That's related to a multiple issues, but also related to the high cost, poorly resource sector. And this is unacceptable at present. And we need to have major health reform and address this, which has been ongoing. And I guess that sets the scene for the fact that we need some critical reform and can't keep doing the same things over expecting change. And this is where digital technology and the health space is so ripe for disruption and ready to progress. So we need to now recognize that and move forward. It's access, chronic disease management, rural health for us. We have a challenge around that, particularly around the world, access to remote areas. How do we serve them? Can digital technology provide I guess, the bridge? And I think these are very exciting times. But again, we will be called to answer how did we respond with all of these technologies? How have we gone in this space to allow this maximal impact for healthcare?
Professor, moving into the topic at hand, technology. I mean, it's always been there in healthcare, but right now what we're seeing is it's accelerating in leaps and bounds. So, what exactly would you say is happening in the tech space in healthcare right now?
That's a great question. So why have we been sitting without maximizing this issue? I mean, there are a lot of, I guess there are a lot of factors involved. And as you said, the technology has been around for a little while, but there's been a rift, if you like. There's been a valley connecting the two pieces of clinicians, people working in the health space, and the technology teams with all of their knowledge and ability connecting. And for some reason, there has been some issues around that, key problems, which we'll speak about more in detail shortly, but I think there has been, but that's been broken down. So areas that we're now ripe for picking are, things like the rise of telemedicine. If you're placed remotely and you need to access a doctor, there is the ability for you to make consults. Here in Australia, this is now a huge advantage and being levered to provide that care. Remote monitoring, you can monitor the patients. You can use AI in diagnostics. You can use using these technologies. We know about the wearable devices and how they help in the chronic disease management. So these are some of the areas that that are expanding. One of the major pieces, if you like, if you look at a trigger, so what's changed is this whole issue about data interoperability and health information exchange. So we're becoming good at that. Now, there appears to be no boundaries to connect software, connect pieces that are quite disparate. And that is allowing various stakeholders to speak, connect, communicate, collaborate. And I think that's bringing some added leverage to how tech can help transition this. We look at predictive analytics and how you can bespoke a treatment. So when a patient comes in, it's not a shotgun therapy. It's tailoring the treatment to that individual patient. Now that's done because of the ability for this big data set to be analyzed and to give meaningful insights. And some of it's already happening in the cardiology scene, for example. There are very specific treatments for conditions, and you can't give the same treatment to two different patients. So we are learning how to bespoke this. This is again another advantage of where health tech is taking us. We're looking at genomics and genetics. I mean, I have recently had a genetic test as they try to predict what my risk for certain conditions might be. So again, these are some of the areas that are expanding and very exciting opportunities are presenting themselves. But I want to premise this by one overarching principle. The overarching principle, again, is going back to what's the problem we are trying to solve. We are trying to solve the problem of cost. That is a huge issue. Healthcare delivery is becoming so expensive that even the developed countries like the US, where there is per capita spending is quite high, the delivery and the quality of care is not so, it's not comparable, it's not commensurate with. So we need to keep that uppermost. It's called value based. Are we levering value? My basic leadership course, they told me, is remember, quality is a simple understanding. Is it fit for purpose? You can have the postman drive around in a very expensive car. He'll do the job, but it's not fit for purpose. So I think we need to keep that utmost in our minds as we leverage all of these possibilities, is that ultimately it's got to be effective, safe, and its costs must be commensurate with the outcome we are looking at. It can't be so overpriced that it markets itself out of being an option. So technology is that silent arm that's working in the background. It's in our workflow, but it's seamless as it continues to help us. I mean, that's how I see it moving forward.
Who would you say are the major players in the tech space in terms of healthcare, and why is it worth their while to be investing in this?
So I think there are several of the mega players. I mean, people like Microsoft, Google, Amazon. They are all dipping their O in and starting to get engaged in this place. And they're so exciting to see the breadth of what they're doing. They're partnering with other organizations. They kind of have got what they call tech partners. We have got a software startup that we're looking at, partnering with them, and they have this stepwise adoption process you have to be part of. So I think there are big players. There are big players coming into this. I would like to say that there is an element of altruism there. There is an element where they see it's ripe for disruption. I think the time is right. I think they're recognizing there is a need for it. Of course, there is profit to be made. And I don't think in of itself that's a major issue, as long as we can keep that focus that it's for the greater good, and that we're doing it in a scaled manner that is cost effective, that it's not being costed out because corporations, this is a story I like to say about ChatGPT. ChatGPT and OpenAI, they're both, if you look at their history and you look at what they've done, they were started up because the inventors felt it would do amazing things. They believed that it would provide so many solutions in the healthcare space and also outside of that. And so they started it up, and as you know, ChatGPT is such an exciting and piece of software. But along the way, suddenly they got busy and they got privatized and they've lost their way. So I am saying that carefully, and I'm saying that in a measured way, that ultimately companies also need finance to kind of survive. But as long as they don't lose their soul in the way or on the way, then I think that's acceptable. So I think that's the big players are coming in. Microsoft with their huge, infrastructure, teams, their engineers, their ability to scale to problems, their partnerships. So yeah, Philips, Cerner, they are the big players in this space.
Professor, you spoke of the big players in the space, but something we see in this part of the world especially is that innovation seems to come also from the small players who might not always have the financial leverage to kind of take their innovations to the world. How do you see this phenomenon?
Yeah, I think I see that definitely, because there's such a bandwidth that you can have niche players. And I want to allude to this. I think this is a really important point of the fact that in healthcare, there needs to be this key a combination of skills brought to light, and that's the clinicians. And there is an aspect to it that we're still learning things, that the doctors are not the only people that work in that space. There are nurses. There are so many people that need to be part of this, so that unique partnership of clinically driven solutions are very significant and important, because it's not about what the software is about. It's not this amazing bit of kit that can do stuff, but can it address the problem that we are trying to solve? And for that, you need key oversight from the clinicians, those people working at the coalface, who know the pain points, who know the solutions they were looking for, who know the frustrations. And in the health space, as you may have read, there's a lot of burnout. People are just burning out because of the workload. Now, can technology help that? Absolutely, it can help take some of the administrative stuff away from the clinicians, allowing them for patient contact time. So what you do is you take away some of the note-taking, administrative sort of stuff that they do day to day, automate it, and the big players are working on that. They're actually already doing that. So what it does is it allows the clinician to have more time to spend in that patient contact time, which is so important. And this is an aspect that I think they were continuing to work in and to realize. So if you look at most of the big companies and even some of the small, they have a chief medical officer embedded as part of their team. So they understand this team concept. I wanted to mention that Sri Lanka has some amazing software engineers and entrepreneurs and startup people that have started up amazing, creations. I think we need to lever them, get them involved. I can mention Chamat Pilapiti, who's out of Canada but now based in the US. I know of others that work in the tech space. Can we not have them input? Because remembering that Sri Lanka has unique needs and we can't apply a broad brush. We need to engage our clinicians. When I say that in the broader sense, our Sri Lankan clinicians are known worldwide. I mean, they are very clever at what they do. Can we not engage them to try and find solutions for local problems? I think that's really important.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about technology in healthcare.
What makes a truly awesome insurance company? Is it the skills to manage big numbers and big responsibilities? Well, that's definitely part of it. But there's more. It's the people. They're awesome. Super passionate about looking out for others and putting in their time for people's finances. It's not just the people. It's how we do things that's awesome. From being trendsetters of the industry to being connectors or inventors. It's about well-being and how we achieve it. Our teams hustle non-stop to meet the needs of the people. That's why we're on the rise. But it's not just about how we do things either. It's about how we improve things. Helping our clients thrive in a world that's full of awesome goals to achieve. Making the maximum out of the minimum. But wait, there's more to it. There's one last thing that truly makes an insurance company awesome. It's that we care about our people and our customers. All of this combined, it's been a pretty awesome year. And we're excited for tomorrow.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with laparoscopic and robotic specialist surgeon and associate professor Indran Hensman. Professor, you spoke of the need for reform in the sector. In what ways will new technology kind of enable the provision of new services and reform the sector?
So there are many areas that need reform, and it starts from that basic, what we call value-based proposition. In the past, there has been a tendency to look at volume over value. So if you do more cases, you for example, it's an incentive to the provider because they get remunerated on that. There is a transition now as we look to value-based healthcare. Value-based healthcare means that for a given outcome, cost is factored very early in the piece. Now, this is a major reform because it addresses that problem that healthcare is too expensive. It's too costly. And as a result, we have a pie that's being cut up unequally. And so access becomes an issue with that. So major reforms occur in that space. Now, one of the other areas, and I'm going to use some use cases here to discuss this matter, is that if you look at certain parts of that healthcare journey that a patient takes, they're siloed, they're legacy, they're paper-based, there is no way of collecting data. Now, if we change that, use technology to trap that data, for example, and digitize that journey, suddenly we are now able to capture each touch point, and then that data drives insights to improve that journey. Now, we've not had that opportunity in the past, but we have it now. And so these are where the solutions are reforming. They're reforming the way we do that patient journey, and that to and fro. One of the major changes has been the patient's perspective. Are we factoring that in? So, for example, that feedback from the patient is so important. Now we're having portals where the patient can give that automatically through just log in, give us their feedback, which can be factored into how we adjust the treatment accordingly and the experience for the patient. So there are many areas that reform is ripe to happen, and we're looking at that. And technology is the bridge that provides that change.
And what is required to really make high-tech solutions that we can leverage? And when I say we, I mean countries and companies of all sizes.
Yeah, I think that's where there needs to be a close communication. I was just listening to something this morning that most startups in the health space now, they do two things right at the front. They're building teams. I know, and Warren Buffett, when just for those of your audience that I know, investors, they're looking at, where do I invest? What are the sort of go-to areas? Warren Buffett said that when he looks at investing into a company, more than what the solution is, he looks at the back end. He lifts the hood and says, who's the team responsible for this? And it then, for such a clever guy at investing, you think, man, that's a simple solution. Look at the team. Are they capable? Are they working together? What's their track record? And so to answer your question, I think the main considerations for small countries like us is to identify the problems. What are the pain points? Who are the experts who are working day to day in that space? Get them to then interact with the software team and come up with solutions. So most of these new companies actually mandate their software engineers to go and spend time learning about the health space. Okay? And likewise, the doctors, the clinicians, the CMOs and the CIMOs, they have to go and spend time understanding the software space. So again, these are some of the matters that we are taking into consideration to build a robust framework moving forward.
Professor, we are nearing the end of our conversation, but things are getting interesting. AI can of course, provide solutions to the tech space, to the health space as well. Kit, what challenges do you see when we are harnessing the power of AI to maximize value in healthcare?
Yeah, I think there are several challenges for AI, and I think the top piece there is governance and ethics. You know, how this is sensitive data that we're pulling. How can we be careful that that data and the data is secure and that it's there for the right reason? AI systems by nature require large amounts of data. And so with that comes the risk then that that data can be used for the purpose that it was not collected. And we're hearing this now. We're hearing about the issues in that space that we need to be very careful about. The second point I want to address about AI and the challenge is bias and inequity. So we need to be careful about how data is mined and how those complicating factors means that the data can has to be adjusted and risk adjusted and so forth, so that misdiagnosis and here's where I think AI can start. AI can start in the health space with dealing with some of the more administrative side of things. I'll give you an example. In a hospital, there are sometimes up to 150,000 phone calls being made. Those phone calls come in, they have to be handled. They're often quite simple tasks, but because we have no way of doing it, somebody has to answer the phone or take a message, etc. AI can help that process, but it needs to be careful about all of the data. We talked a little bit about ethical and legal issues that there's a space that we're constantly working on to try and work out because unlike other spaces, as someone put it bluntly, someone's life is on the line. So we need to factor that in as we move forward. I want to talk a little bit about the cost. Who's going to put the price? Who's going to pay it for all of this to change? And so if corporations and companies are coming with this idea, how are they going to be remunerated, etc. There is a resistance to adoption. I think even within the health professionals, there is a feeling that AI is going to take my job. I don't believe that that's a valid response. I don't think clinicians and people at the contact point are ever going to disappear completely. So it'll need oversight. It'll need clinicians working, partnering together with, rather than AI taking over. Now, having said that, of course, we know about the narrow AI that you and I sort of deal with every day. And then the generative AI, which is now the very exciting yet slightly experimental part. That's where AI is actually learning along the way and making responses. And then the final, which is of course still theoretical, is a super AI, which will be even better than human intelligence. Now that's an area that's still very much in the research phase, but has got all sorts of pluses and minuses, if you like. So the main challenge I think at this point also is some of the legacy technology. We may have to change that and the cost associated. So yes, we are aware of the challenges, and I think as long as we're aware of it and leaning to solutions, I think they can be overcome for the greater good.
Professor, it's been such an insightful and very interesting conversation with you, but sadly, we are nearing the end, or we're at the end rather. But before I let you go, I'd like to ask you to share your concluding thoughts with our audience.
So I think for Sri Lanka, I just want to sum up. I think for Sri Lanka, as much as for any country, I think there is a recognition that there needs to be an overarching digital roadmap, if you like. What are our priorities? And according to those priorities set out by the clinicians, who of course are the best people to advise us on that, we then partner with the technology, the software experts, and then develop frameworks that we can work through. And I think this is really important because there's such complexities and varied offerings that otherwise, if we don't have a clear roadmap, I suppose it's like going from a destination A to B, if we don't have a map, we'll probably end up getting lost along the way. So I think that's important. I think there are very clever people in Sri Lanka who are obviously thinking about these matters. And I think it's time now for the diaspora. I think whoever's living overseas, and I don't mean to say that they didn't have good reason to leave or whatever their reason was, irrespective of that. I think it's time for the diaspora to now cash back, give back to the country of birth. And I'm hopeful that with the current change, that will be embraced, not to the point that we are undervaluing our local experts, but just helping to bring solutions, partnering with them, and using some of the experience that 25 years for me in surgery has helped me get to a point. So I'm reaching out, I'm doing things, teaching pro bono, understanding the importance of that, and the moral responsibility I have to do that.
We've been in conversation with laparoscopic and robotic specialist surgeon and Associate Professor Indran Hensman. Professor, it was such a delight to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.